A Virginia mom who grew up in communist China under Mao Zedong just dropped a whole bunch of truth bombs on the Loudon County School Board about critical race theory, about cultural revolution, and about the danger it poses to a free society. Loudon County has been embroiled in controversy lately with the suspension and then the forced reinstatement of a teacher who just talked about biological realities of transgender students, and now they are getting dumped on by this mom who has lived through some of the worst that humanity has to offer. Let's talk about it. I'm Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. I'm a lawyer. I'm also a legal and political commentator on YouTube and on Odyssey. Wherever you're watching, make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe, and go ahead and turn on your notifications because I don't want you to miss any of these videos, all right? Okay, so we are talking about critical race theory. It's a hot button topic in the news right now as the Biden administration, his Department of Education, is trying to push critical race theory out to all of these state schools, and there are fights going on over that right now. Ron DeSantis has proposed a rule to ban critical race theory entirely from Florida schools, and their Department of Education just actually approved it today as well. So that will not be happening there. The fight continues, though, in other parts of the country. Now, critical race theory. Let's do just a quick background on it, and then we're going to get into an article from Fox News and look at what this Virginia mom has been saying at the Loudon County School Board, which is really, really great stuff. But at its core, critical race theory is a theoretical approach, a critical theoretical approach, critical theory, right, to an issue. And really any issue is how critical theory works. You can apply it to writings, you can apply it to societies, cultures, texts, whatever you want it to apply to. Critical race theory is the critical approach that goes to any situation and says, this is a racist system built on the oppression of typically in America, black minority peoples by white majority peoples. That is the idea. So that when you're looking at systems of anything in America, from law enforcement to education to hiring to medical care to food, whatever it is, whatever system, it's from a hierarchical presupposition that it is a racist system. It has systemic racism involved based on white versus black and white over black. So that anytime you look at any of these scenarios, you have to look at it through the lens that the black person is being oppressed by the white person. This is a problematic approach for a lot of reasons. It is a presupposition. That means it's not necessarily based on the reality of the situation. It is imposing that reality upon every situation. Now, there are uses for critical theories out there in analyzing different literary works and stuff like that. And critical theory can teach us things about certain systems. This is not really appropriate at the high school level, and using critical race theory as a curriculum for high school or even just K through 12 education, generally speaking, teaches children that they are, by merit of their skin color, one thing or another. And in this particular thing, that they are racist versus some of their peers automatically, systemically, and unavoidably. And that the only thing they can do is try to mitigate their horrific evilness that, again, is based on their own skin color. This is why critical race theory is such a nasty and dangerous thing, because it's being forced upon children by the education system, and these kids are not equipped with the tools to use the critical thinking skills that help them understand that this theory is there to look at systems in place. Rather, they're just being told that they are bad because of how they were born, which I think we're trying to get away from and have been for a very long time, but not today, not anymore, not in Joe Biden's America, right? So here we go. Virginia mom. This is from Fox News. You can check out the article linked in the description if you want. It's a long one, so we're not going to get to all of it. Just some key points here. Virginia mom who survived Maoist China eviscerates school board's critical race theory push. She Van Fleet said cultural revolution began when she was 6, pitted students against one another and their teachers. And that is, of course, what critical race theory does outside of its proper context. Again, critical theories being applied in a research sort of setting to draw realities and truths out of something with the understanding of the application of the theory isn't the worst thing in the world. We use critical theories to do a lot of stuff. Film review. Entertainment reviews tend to employ various critical theories. Say, okay, how does this stack up? What does this teach us about feminism? What does this teach us about masculinity? What does this teach us about whatever you want it to do? And not all critical theories are inherently leftist either. There are plenty of critical theories that span the entire spectrum of political ideology. This is not automatically a problem with critical theory in general. But its implementation, again, is not appropriate at this level of education and without the proper context of using critical theory in the way it's intended to be used. So Virginia mom who endured Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution before immigration to the U.S. ripped a Virginia school board at a public meeting Tuesday over its stubborn support of the controversial critical race theory. I've been alarmed by what's going on in our schools, She Van Fleet told the Loudon County School Board members. You are now training our children to be social justice warriors and to loathe our country and our history. And this is not limited to schools right now. Anybody who turns on any TV or news will see how bad America is, and more importantly, how bad white Americans are. Like, it's amazing that this is what's going on, and it is very much trying to pit a racial divide in this country that we actually haven't seen in a very long time. They're trying to drive a wedge between different races. This is the opposite. And they're succeeding, by the way. They're succeeding at all levels of this, at every level of political thought, of every social, economic level. They are actually driving wedges between people based on their races with this sort of rhetoric and activity being thrust into the American mainstream. She likened critical race theory, which critics deride as a form of neo-racism. And critical race theory, again, is not inherently... No, let me rephrase that. It is inherently racist. And the understanding is that when it's used appropriately, it is making those distinctions based on race to draw truth out of something in a particular targeted setting or study. When it's just put into the mainstream as the reality, it is not in its appropriate limited setting or study. It is an inherently racist theory. It assumes racism based on skin color. Literally nothing else. It says, in this country, the white is dominant and the black is subservient. Therefore, the white versus the black divide exists because of the whiteness and the blackness of the person. And that's it. There's no look into the character, into the soul of the person. And that is the problem with it. It is inherently racist. And outside of its limited context, limited useful context, it becomes very, very dangerous. She likened it to a form of neo-racism, to China's Cultural Revolution, a Mao-led purge that led between 500,000 and 20 million people dead from 1966 to 1976. The estimates vary greatly, and many details have been shrouded in secrecy for decades. And believe me, they're on that upper end. It's one of the greatest atrocities committed by man was the Cultural Revolution in China. Van Fleet, whose son graduated from Loudon High School in 2015, shared some of her experience growing up in China's Sichuan province with Fox News exclusively Wednesday evening. Cultural Revolution began when she was 6 years old, she said, and immediately pitted students and teachers against one another by hanging big posters in hallways in the cafeteria where students could write criticisms against anyone deemed ideologically unpure. One of the teachers was considered bourgeois because she liked to wear pretty clothes, Van Fleet said. So the students attacked her and spit on her. She was covered with spit, and pretty soon it became violence. Communist squads would raid homes and destroy any relics of China's past culture, history, governments, or religion. She said everything was considered old, feudalist, avars, Buddhas, everything was taken out and smashed. There were thought crimes too. We were asked to report if we hear anything about someone saying anything, showing there's a lack of complete loyalty to Mao. There were people reporting their parents, and their parents ended up in jail. At 26 years old, she finally made it out. So what did she say about the critical race theory in the schools? That's the question here. It says, I feel like it's such a free country, meaning I have free access to all sorts of information, books on both sides of the issue. But she sees that eroding. I can't really just say what I mean, even though the other side can say whatever. To me and to a lot of Chinese, it is heartbreaking that we escaped communism and now we experience communism here. In her speech to the board, which officials made her shorten to fit the 1-minute limit, she drew direct parallels between what she saw back then in China to what she sees in the United States today. The communist regime used the same critical theory to divide people. The only difference is they use class instead of race. She said she witnessed students and teachers turn against each other during the pogrom and saw students change their names, schools change their names to be politically correct, something we've seen a lot of and a lot of push for here in the United States. We were taught to denounce our heritage. The Red Guards destroyed anything that is not communist, statues, books, and everything else. We were also encouraged to report on each other, just like the Student Equity Ambassador Program and the bias reporting system. This is indeed the American version of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, she said. The critical race theory has its roots in cultural Marxism. It should have no place in our school. And this is more and more of what we need to see. We need to see parents standing up to school boards. If school boards are not compliant with what parents want to see, need to see, and if they are trying to indoctrinate our children to hate themselves, to hate their heritage, and to hate their peers, then we need to get those school boards out. Get them out. They do not belong in education if that is what they are teaching at government schools in the United States. Look, if you want to create a private school that teaches critical race theory, you go right ahead. This has no place in K through 12 education, in my opinion, and it certainly has no place in K through 12 public education. If you want to indoctrinate your children to hate, do it on your own time and do it on your own dime. That is no place in American education. American education system that has gone so far off the rails beyond just educating kids in how to think, how to do math, and how to read has it's become an embarrassment. Guys, homeschool and private school is looking pretty good right now. Anyway, let me know what you think down below. I think this woman's great. I think we need more parents like her standing up, and especially parents who lived under communist regimes, who committed human atrocities on the regular in the favor of the state, who divided the people against themselves so they would not have the numbers to challenge the state. And that's where it starts. Because if we are united as a people, we manage the state. If we are divided as a people, the state manages us. Until next time, peace. Peace.